Why the Egyptian Shemer argument doesn't work. To understand the problem, here is some background context. There's a story in the Quran, chapter 20, verses 85 to 97. Moses goes up the mountain to receive God's message. While he's gone, someone convinces the Israelites to build a golden calf and worship it. The Quran calls this person Al-Samiri and Samiri. In plain Arabic, that word means the Samaritan. That creates a timing problem. Samaritans are a real group of people who still exist today, but they didn't become a distinct group until many centuries after Moses would have lived. It's a little like a story about George Washington that mentions someone checking their text messages. So some people look for a different meaning of the word. One popular attempt goes like this. The word actually comes from ancient Egyptian, where Shemer meant stranger or foreigner. Israelites used it as a nickname to refer to that foreigner. On that reading, the Quran isn't saying the Samaritan. It's saying the foreigner. An Egyptian outsider, not an Israelite. The proof Muslims offer is a dictionary entry from a book by Sir E.A. Wallace Budge. However, the latest, more accurate findings of Egyptologists don't support this dictionary claim. Let's walk through why that doesn't hold up. That brings us to the first problem, and it starts with the dictionary itself, the one experts warn against. Budge published his Egyptian hieroglyphic dictionary in 1920. He was famous in his day. But while he was working, a group of German scholars in Berlin had figured out much better rules for reading Egyptian grammar, and Budge refused to accept their work. He kept using older methods that other experts had already moved past. The result is that his dictionary contains definitions modern Egyptologists consider wrong or outdated. Professors today often tell students specifically not to use it. The books the field actually trusts are the Wörterbuch der Ägyptischen Sprache, a large German dictionary, and an online database called the Thesaurus Linguae Egyptiae. Here's the key point to hold on to. If a word shows up in Budge, but not in those trusted sources, that's not a small technicality. That absence is itself the answer. It usually means the word was a misreading. There's also a pattern worth noticing. Another writer, Maurice Bucaille, tried to solve a different Quran puzzle. A character named Haman placed in ancient Egypt, by finding an obscure Egyptian title that sounded similar. Egyptologists examined it and found he had misread a monument in a Vienna museum. Same technique, same outcome. Skip the standard references. Find one obscure source that gives you the match you want. That pattern of cherry-picking sources runs into a second problem, and this one is even more fundamental. Ancient Egyptian didn't write vowels. This one surprises people, but it's the strongest objection. Egyptian hieroglyphs recorded consonants only, no vowels, ever. It's roughly like writing English as the 7 letters S, T, R, N, G, E, R, strung together with no vowels, and expecting readers to know it says stranger. That creates an obvious problem for modern scholars. You can't say a word out loud with no vowels. So Egyptologists agreed on a shortcut. They just stick a short E sound between the consonants so words are pronounceable in a classroom. That convenience is the entire origin of Shemer. The actual ancient evidence is 3 consonants, she, M, and R. Both E sounds were added by scholars in the modern era as a convenience. No ancient Egyptian is known to have pronounced the word that way. Now compare that to what we're trying to explain. The Arabic word is Samiri, long A, then I, then long E. Those specific vowels are exactly what needs an explanation. And the Egyptian word contributes nothing to them, because it has no vowels to contribute. The resemblance between Shemer and Samiri is a resemblance to a modern teaching habit, not to ancient Egyptian. That brings us to part 3, and a problem that cuts even deeper. The argument contradicts itself. Look closely at the phrase Egyptianized Hebrew. It's trying to hold 2 claims at once, and they cancel out. In Hebrew, the root she, M-R means guard or watch. That's a well-known root. It gives you shomer, meaning a watchman, and it's the name Shemer in the Bible, 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 24, the man who sold a hill to King Omri. Budge's Egyptian word supposedly means stranger, a totally different idea from guard or watch. These are 2 separate words in 2 separate languages that happen to share 3 consonants. That's a coincidence, and coincidences like this are common. English gift means a present. German gift means poison. Same letters, unrelated meanings, no connection. So the argument has to choose. Call it Hebrew, and you get guard, not foreigner. Call it Egyptian, and you can't also call it Hebrew. There's a dating problem too. Egyptian writing goes back to around 3200 BCE. Hebrew as a distinct language appears somewhere around 1200 to 1000 BCE. If Budge's Shemer is from early Egyptian, it existed roughly 2000 years before Hebrew did, so it cannot be a borrowed Hebrew word. That settles the internal logic. But there is still a practical question the argument never answers. Which brings us to part 4. How would anyone in Arabia have known this? Suppose ancient Egyptian really did have a word Shemer meaning foreigner. For that to explain the Quran, the word needs a path. Some way of traveling from ancient Egypt into the ears of people in Western Arabia in the 600 SCE. That path would need evidence. The word surviving into Coptic, the last stage of Egyptian, which was still spoken then. The word appearing in pre-Islamic Arabic poetry, its appearance in the great Arabic dictionaries, which recorded huge numbers of rare and borrowed words. None of these has been produced. Meanwhile, we know exactly what Al-Samiri meant to Arabic speakers, because they wrote it down. Scholars like Al-Biruni and Al-Shahrastani used Al-Samira as the standard Arabic term for the actual Samaritan community. The ordinary meaning is documented, the proposed hidden meaning is not, and one piece of the word never gets addressed. That final E is a real grammatical ending in Arabic called a nisba. It marks belonging to a place or group. Misr, meaning Egypt, becomes Al-Misri, the Egyptian. Baghdad becomes Al-Baghdadi, the Baghdadi. And Samira, meaning Samaria, becomes Al-Samiri, the Samaritan. The grammar is pointing at group membership. Even if you swapped in foreigner for the root, you'd get the foreignerite, which isn't a sensible word in any language. The grammar alone is enough to sink the substitution. Which brings us to part 5, and a problem that may be the most telling of all. Nobody close to the text ever suggested this. The great early Quran commentators, Al-Tabari, who died in 923, Al-Zamakhshari, Al-Razi, and Ibn Kathir, were serious scholars. They wrote enormous commentaries and had a habit of listing every interpretation they'd ever heard, including ones they rejected. They discussed this word at length. Their debate was about which group the man came from. Not one of them suggested an Egyptian origin meaning foreigner. That silence matters. These men were native Arabic speakers, closer in time to the Quran's origin than we are by more than 1,000 years. And they were combing through the language for exactly this kind of detail. If the word plainly meant foreigner, someone in that tradition would have said so. That silence is hard to explain away if the word truly carried a different meaning. Which brings us to problem 6, and a detail inside the story itself that points the other way. After the golden calf, Moses punishes the man. His sentence is that he must go through life saying, La misasa, no touching, verse 97. Samaritans are historically known for strict rules about ritual purity and physical contact with outsiders. Several scholars think this line is a pointed reference to that practice. Notice what this does to the two readings. If the word means the Samaritan, the punishment connects to something real about that group. If the word just means a foreign guy, the no-touching line is random. There's nothing for it to attach to. That asymmetry points to a deeper problem with this whole style of argument, and it comes down to how cheaply three-letter matches can be found. Here's the general issue with this whole style of argument. Semitic languages build words from roots of about 3 consonants. There are only so many consonants. Do the math and you get a limited number of possible combinations. But the world's languages contain millions of words. Matches are guaranteed to happen by pure chance. So if you're allowed to search any language, in any historical period, using any dictionary including discarded ones, and you ignore vowels entirely, you can find a match for almost anything. Finding one proves very little. That's why linguists demand more than a resemblance. They want regular sound correspondences, patterns that hold across many words, not just the one you're interested in. And they want a documented path of transmission. Without those two things, you have a coincidence with a story attached. Some Muslims will argue that the Israelites may have used the word Samiri as a nickname for the foreigner who built the golden calf. But there's no historical support for this practice. The point of communication is to relay information to an Arabic audience with meanings they understand. But a nickname built from a dead Egyptian word, filtered through Hebrew, that no Arabic speaker could decode, isn't a nickname. It's a code nobody has the key to. And we know what Arabic speakers understood Al-Samiri to mean because they wrote it down for centuries, Samaritan. The two arguments now cancel each other out. This is the part worth pressing. If the Quran wanted to say the foreigner, Arabic already has words for that: al-Gharib, al-Ajami. And the Quran uses that vocabulary elsewhere. So what would actually change the picture? To make this argument work, someone would need to show four things. The first is the root shin mem resh, meaning foreigner in the standard references, the Wörterbuch or the Thesaurus Linguae Egyptiae, with real text citations and dates. The second is a surviving form in Coptic, showing the word lasted into the era when it could have traveled. The third is some Arabic attestation near the time of the Quran. And the fourth is an explanation of the vowels and the nisba ending. That's not an unfair standard. It's the ordinary standard for claiming any word came from another language.